Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us for new agent training. We are going to be closing out the year 2020. So at the end of the year, I like to go over some year-end best business practices. And we did that on our previous call. And today in the new agent training, I'd like to go over some best business practices for all year round, and then a couple for at the end of the year as well. Because if you're a new agent, you likely don't have any business practices yet because you are new to the industry and you're still trying to get on your feet as to what should be your protocols and your structures that you're using to help keep yourself organized and help keep yourself in touch with past clients. So what we're going to go over today is brand new agent best business practices, things that didn't occur to me until several years after I'd been in business and stubbed my toe many, many times, or reinvented the wheel over and over again. You know, I crafted the same emails 100 times before I realized I could make a draft email and then copy and paste that draft email into a fresh new email window and send that to my client. So be smarter than me. So the first one I want to talk about is filling out sample purchase agreements and listing agreements. So if you have not gone through the listing paperwork before you're sitting there in front of your sellers and filling out that listing paperwork with them, you're not going to be as fluid with explaining the clauses in the listing agreement or the purchase agreement unless you've gone through it before. So we do have sample purchase packets and sample listing packets that have everything filled out so that you can use those as a cheat sheet and fill out your documents. But equally important is just going through it and filling it out yourself, and then go back to those sample ones that we've provided you to give you some idea of how many days you should be putting in the slots for the inspection addendum, what should be written on those fill in the blank sections of the purchase agreement and the listing agreement. So go through them. Talk out loud as you're going through them. The point is you want to be able to walk your buyer or your seller through those documents and thoroughly explain, but not overwhelm, right? That's the hard part, is you want to explain it all to your buyer and your seller, but not completely overwhelm them. They're looking to you and trusting you to help them know what's important and help you, and they're wanting you to help them get through the document and feel like they have a good understanding of what they're signing. I don't ever want to let someone say, oh, I don't care, let's just sign it. No, because they need to understand what they're signing. So I'm going to say, okay, I hear you, but just humor me and let me just touch on these important clauses real quick. And let me just run through them and briefly explain to you what they mean. That is a best business practice. What happens if later they say, well, they just sent it to me for electronic signatures, I didn't read it, right? So that takes me to my next point. Always send the documents twice. Once as a PDF ahead of time, ahead of the electronic signatures, so that they have an opportunity to review them. And what I put in the body of my email is, hi guys, I'm attaching our offer or our listing, and I would like to give you an opportunity to review them and ask me any questions so that I can make corrections before I send it to you for your electronic signature. So would you please look through these documents and let me know if everything looks good. If it looks good, I'll go ahead and send it to you through DocuSign or AuthentiSign, whatever you're using for your electronic signatures. Now, if you can look down the road, the insurance policy for me is that later they can't say, well, I got it for electronic signature and I didn't read it. She just told me to click the buttons. No, I will be able to pull up an email that says, hey guys, review this for accuracy. See if I've missed anything. See if there's anything on here that's incorrect, because I'd like to get it corrected before I send it to you for your electronic signatures, okay? Now, constantly remind yourself that we give concierge service. Anybody can send a document and say, here, review this and sign it, right? My job is to say, hey guys, here it is for review. Give me a call when you've got a few minutes to discuss it, and we can go over it over the phone or on Zoom, okay? And then I will send it to you for your electronic signature. This is about protecting you, the agent. This is so that the buyer and or the seller know what they're signing. But really, you are my clientele. I want to keep you guys safe, okay? So you're going to want to send it ahead of time. The electronic signature copy should not be the only one you're sending. You should be sending it as a PDF ahead of time for their review. Anybody have any questions about that or how to do that? If you don't know, here's just a quick little tech tip. Anytime you have the option to print something, one of your printer selections should be Save as PDF or Microsoft Print to PDF. Choose that as your printer and click Print, and it will allow you to, it will convert it into a PDF and allow you to save it on your hard drive. That way you can go ahead and attach that to an email and send it to your clients, okay? So you don't need like an Adobe or anything like that. One of the printer options should be saving it as a PDF, okay? All right. So another great idea for a best business practice is whether you're working with sellers or buyers is just go ahead and put on your calendar a weekly update. So a weekly update or report to your buyers and sellers, even if these are buyers who you are still actively looking for homes for. I've got 4 or 5 buyers right now who we've been looking for 6 months or a year because we just can't find the house or we've been beat out in multiple offer situations. I have several buyers who are feeling pretty depressed about the situation currently. I know they know I'm still looking at the hot sheet, and I know they know I'm still sending them properties when I see one pop up, but it can be weeks before I see them to show them a property right now, okay? So sending my buyers a weekly update to say, hey guys, just checking in with you. I know we didn't see anything come on the market last week, but just a friendly reminder that I swear I am still looking and I know that house is going to come up. So just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about you. Okay. That is what keeps your buyer tied to you. Not that they sign an exclusive right to represent buyer agreement with you, okay? You want your buyers working with you because they want to work with you and you are providing superb customer service to them, not because you've bound them to you with an exclusive right to represent buyer agreement, okay? I don't have people quit on me and work with other people. And the only reason being, I'm providing them everything they're asking for. I'm providing them a subscription on MLS that will send them emails when properties matching their search criteria come on the market. I'm providing them a weekly email just saying, hey guys, touching base and letting you know, I was sorry nothing came on the market last week. Wanted to let you know I also jumped on Zillow and looked for sale by owners and didn't really see anything matching your search criteria, but I'll be continuing to do my due diligence and trying to find you the home of your dreams, okay? When they're getting weekly updates from me, they're not wandering to other agents. They're not being poached by other agents. They're not clicking buttons on Realtor.com or Zillow and having other agents contact them. They're not doing that. First, I've educated them what those buttons do. Those buttons sell your information to other real estate agents. So please don't click buttons on the internet. And secondly, I've stayed in touch. It would be very easy during the winter months to just kind of fall off the radar for a couple of months. When there are no properties coming on the market, you don't have anything to show them. Resist that urge, get into the pattern of making sure every week you're setting aside some time on your calendar to reach out to your buyers and sellers. Now, sellers, they are tied to you. You have their house listed. You exclusively have the right to market and sell that house. I am still contacting them once a week to say, hey guys, wanted to give you a quick report. No one showed the house last week. It was Thanksgiving week, so I doubt very many people were looking, but I still wanted to give you the update. I'll look at the numbers at the end of this week and see if we've had any showings. If we haven't had any showings, we might want to consider taking action. That could look like a price reduction or an agent bonus or an open house, or a big push on social media, or all of those things. But what they hear when I send them that email is that I recognize that their home is not getting shown. And I'm trying to figure out why, and I'm trying to help brainstorm a solution that will drive some interest to their home. So every week, my sellers are going to get an email from me reporting what activity there has been. And sometimes if I have a seller who is kind of in my business about how I'm marketing the property, and that happens sometimes, I will also report, I ran a boosted post on Facebook this week. It reached X numbers of people or had X numbers of impressions. I ran a post on Instagram about the property. This, that, the other. This is how I marketed your property this week. If you want to be really good, send out a weekly email to your seller and just let them know what you're doing. Instagram made 3 posts. Facebook made 2 posts and boosted one of them to an audience of X numbers of people, right? Once you have that draft email done up, you can very easily pull those figures from where you've been doing your marketing and fill out those draft emails for each one of your sellers and send them a report every week. They are only ever going to use you once you have established everything, you've shown them everything you're doing to sell their house. They're also going to be less hesitant to listen to you and your recommendations about a price reduction, right? Because if they feel like you've done nothing for 2 weeks and then you've come back at them saying, okay, time to price reduce, it seems like they're doing all the heavy lifting, right? But if you're illustrating to them your value and what you've been doing to market their home, they're going to be much more willing to listen to you about what you feel like is the solution to get their house sold. Anybody have any questions about that? I'm talking into the void today. Anybody? Okay. I'm just going to keep listing things. Feel free to jump in here anytime. So another biggie is asking for feedback following every showing. So your super box is going to tell you when someone has shown the home. You need to be asking for feedback from those agents. Don't pester them to death because it's a very busy market this year and it's been hard for agents to be able to take that moment to give feedback. But this is, as my grandmother would say, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you are given a request for feedback, give them feedback. Make it thoughtful, make it constructive. My feedback, when I'm asked, is typically 3 sentences long. The house was well organized, smelled good, and the clutter was tidied away. Good job on the seller. Unfortunately, we noticed some water staining in the basement along the baseboards, and that scared off my buyer. They do not intend to make an offer. Good luck with the listing. That is what my feedback is looking like. It's giving some positive reinforcement to the seller for something they did right. So what the seller did correctly was have the house tidy and uncluttered and smelling great. What the seller didn't do correctly, or what was a stumbling block for my buyer, was they did not disclose water issues in the basement or correct water issues in the basement. And this could also solve the problem for the seller. What if they had had waterproofing done, but they were cheap and didn't replace the baseboards? That would give the listing agent an opportunity to come back to me and say, well, thank you so much for showing it. I noticed that in your feedback, you mentioned that the baseboards in the basement are water stained. Here is a copy of the receipt from where they had a waterproofing company come in and completely waterproof the basement. I told them they should have replaced the baseboards, but they didn't. Would your buyer still be interested? So it also gives the listing agent an opportunity to say, this is feedback I've gotten from a buyer's agent who showed your home. And they are saying you should replace the baseboards in the basement because you waterproofed the basement, and you're not getting the credit for that because you didn't replace the baseboards. So it gives the listing agent some leverage to be able to go back to that seller and say, listen, it's not just me, it's the market saying, you've spent the money on the waterproofing, let's replace the baseboards. I had a listing last year, or this year, excuse me, and there was no central air. we heard from 7 or 8 people, you need central air. Now, do you think I told those sellers they needed central air? Yes, of course I did, and got quotes. They opted not to do central air, but they did change their mind later when 8 or 9 real estate buyers agents told them they need central air. Okay. So feedback is important, not just because you're helping that listing agent out by giving the feedback, but because you want that listing agent to give you feedback on your listings later. Okay. You're only going to get out of this business as much as you put into it. And giving feedback is one of those huge pet peeves of mine that if someone asks, I'm going to give them feedback. Okay. It may sometimes be brutal. It may be, well, we pulled up and I dropped the box and they decided not to even go inside because the driveway was like this and we didn't know the driveway was that steep from your photos. And they decided when we were standing there at the lockbox that they didn't want to contend with that driveway. Well, that's information the listing agent needs to know. So provide feedback when asked. Ask for feedback every time the house is shown. Okay. Send thank you notes to other agents after the closing. If you've closed a transaction, send a thank you note to that other agent. Just say, hey, Jennifer, thanks for a smooth transaction. So glad everything worked out well. Hope to work another one with you soon. You know what you're doing there? First off, we're congratulating each other. Good job. Secondly, 6 months, 9 months, 3 years down the road, I'm in a multiple offer situation on a listing with that same agent. They remember the transaction. They specifically remember me sending them a thank you note, right? So that may give me the edge later that they may say to their seller, hey, you know what? I worked with Jennifer on a previous transaction. She was great to work with. So let's just keep that in mind. If we can make her offer work, let's make that one work because I'd love to work with her. She's super professional and it was a very smooth transaction. Okay. So we're in a very strange industry that our competitors are also our coworkers. Okay. It is going to give you longevity in your career if you can make friends with the other real estate agents in town. And that comes just from a very simple thank you note. Be professional, be courteous. I've said this before. When you send an email to the other agent, before you hit send, go back to the beginning and write, good morning, Deepak, or hope you're having a great Thursday, Deepak. Okay? Every single time you send an email, go back to the top and give a salutation. Okay?
I am the worst at doing that, but I do exactly what you just said because I'm always like, I just want to get this out. And then I'm like, okay, grump ass,
Yep.
because you catch more flies with sugar than vinegar.
Mm-hmm. So we are solution oriented. That's our job. Our job every day is to come up with solutions for our buyers and our sellers. Well, because of that, when we go to craft that email, it's typically in response or providing information. Well, we jump right to the solution-oriented part of our brain, and we're forgetting to do the warm fuzzies, right? Warm fuzzies will get you most places. They will, so it's fine if your brain works that way. My brain works that way. I'm solution oriented, obviously. So I craft my email, I'm ready to hit send, and I tell myself, nope, back to the top, add a warm fuzzy, perhaps also go to the end, add a warm fuzzy, and then I'm going to click send. Now, y'all know I also talk about using Gmail's schedule send. And this week I made a mistake with the Gmail schedule send. I do a lot of emailing very late at night because that's when it's quiet and I can catch up on all of my emails from the day. So I will use Gmail's schedule send. And if you don't know where that is, you go down to where the send button is and there's a little drop down arrow there and you can pick schedule send. So I can craft 15 emails in the evening and schedule them all for 8 a.m. the next morning or 9 a.m. the next morning or 1 p.m. the next day. Okay. Well, this week I have been having some ongoing conversation with an agent who was considering joining our firm. And it was about 11:30 at night when I was making a response to one of his emails. And I wrote, this is 11:30 at night. I wrote, "Good morning, blank, blank, blank," and went on with my, solution-oriented responses to his questions. And then I went to click schedule send so I could schedule it for 8 a.m. the next morning, and I didn't. I clicked send. So about 5 minutes later, I had a oh no moment where I realized at 11:30 at night, he's getting an email from me that says good morning. He either noticed and didn't care or didn't notice, because I had a response the next morning. I felt a little bit like an idiot. So another tip people have given me is don't put who you're sending it to in until the last point. So do the subject line, do the body of your email, and then put in the recipient. That way you can just do a quick check to make sure it's the way you want it to be. It also keeps you from, when the cat walks across your keyboard and sends your email halfway through, it doesn't actually go to anybody. So just a pro tip for you there. Okay, so if you are a new agent, if you are an agent who doesn't do this, please give some thought to becoming a checklist kind of person. My 20-year-old, she's resentful when I tell her she needs to be a checklist kind of person, because she doesn't want to be a checklist person. She doesn't want to think that her brain works that way. And I'm going to tell you, I was raised by Taylor Wainwright, who the joke between my sisters and myself is put it on a yellow pad. Because my whole life, I'm talking 5 years old, my dad was advising me to put it on a yellow pad. Because my dad had those yellow those notepads with him everywhere. He must have had 20 going at any given time. So that's the joke between me and my sisters. And as much as I hate to admit it, he is absolutely right. You need to put it on a yellow pad. So become a checklist person. Now, you can be a fancy yellow pad person and you can make, pretty checklists and put your monogram on them and do what you need to do so that you use them, but you need to become a checklist person. And you need to have a dozen checklists. They need to be things like for your social media, a social media calendar. What are the required disclosures for ads? You need to have these checklists and use them often. We have one called From Contract to Closing, and it literally is just a glorified checklist where you then can pull it out when you have a buyer and work your way through that 4-page document to make sure you've done everything that you should be doing when you're working a buyer from contract all the way to closing. And the very last item on that is write a thank you note. Okay. So create these checklists, check in with us to see if we already have some. And definitely, because this came up this week, have a checklist for what are the required disclosures for online advertising. Now, RVAR has put one out. They have a 1-page flyer that very clearly bullet points what should be on all online advertising. So I got a message from another broker in town this week about one of our agents' ads in a forum on Facebook. And the complaint was that they couldn't find the listing that this agent was referencing. Now, this agent had permission from the listing agent to advertise this property, so that wasn't a problem, but there was not enough information. The required disclosures were not there. She did not have the firm name. She did not have jurisdiction. Now, all of that was one click away. If you had clicked her name, it would have taken you to her business page, and all of those disclosures were there. But the complaint was that no one could figure out what this listing was. So the Realtor Code of Ethics has an article in there about painting a true and accurate representation. So my advice to her was to add something saying listing courtesy of, and then put the other firm name. That gives attribution. It allows people to know that it isn't her listing. and that she would be functioning as a buyer's agent if anyone wanted to contact her on this listing. She opted to take the posting down until she could get it in compliance. And I gave her a copy of the flyer from RVAR so that she could use that as a checklist from now on, to be able to run through every ad she's going to post, look at that flyer, and just make sure that you've got all the disclosures required on there. Donna is smart enough to just put the firm website, just www.wainwrightco.com, at the bottom of every real estate post she puts on Facebook. Now, if she had her own website, she could put that, because that's going to always be one click away to all of the required disclosures. So that's just the shortest, most truncated way she can have all of those boxes checked that she's got all the required disclosures. And she can just know if she puts that that website address, she's going to be covered. Okay. Next best business practice is use a CRM. If I could go back in time and use a client relationship manager software program earlier in my real estate career, I can tell you I would be selling a lot more homes. There are a lot of people who I find scribbled down in a notebook or on a Post-it note on the wall. I found one yesterday. It literally only said, Ryan, Airbnb. That's all it said on a Post-it note on my wall, right? It took me 10 minutes to remember who that was, okay? And because I know myself, I went into my email and I searched my email for Ryan Airbnb. You know what I found? I got excited because I found an email. You know what it said? Ryan Airbnb. That's all it said. So did not help myself out there. I did eventually figure out who it was. He no longer is looking for an Airbnb, so crisis averted. But is that a best business practice? Heck no. Be better than this lady, okay? If you had a client relationship management software program, and there are many to choose from, including our own MLS that has contact management on there, that's still better than nothing. I maybe would have already sold Ryan an Airbnb, but in this case, I stuck them on a Post-it note and stuck it on my wall and forgot all about it. So be better than this lady. So go ahead, if you're not using a CRM, use one. There are many, and I will type some into the chat box right now. We've got, Walter, was that old one you used to use, Agent Juggler? Realty Juggler.
How'd you hear that? I wasn't muted.
I heard you through the wall.
Yes, Realty Juggler. I actually still have that because it's for as far as the CRMs go, it is super inexpensive. It's I think they actually I was grandfathered in at $99 a year. I think it has now gone up to the whopping cost of $129 a year or $139 a year. But it is super robust. You could probably run the brokerage through that thing. Mm-hmm. If you really got down to brass tacks.
It is not terribly pretty looking. So
no,
it is obviously
not aesthetically pleasing.
Correct.
But it will give you more than what you need to succeed, especially in following up. You can set it up that all your leads will go in there. I mean, when I was doing paid Zillow, it would deposit my leads as they came from Zillow into the CRM. You can manually upload. I mean, you can hook it up to whatever ad generation lead generation you're running. And I mean, there's email campaigns, blah, blah, blah in there.
That's right. Meaning,
and if you'd like, I can send you a code for 3 months free.
Well, thank you, Walter. So reach out to Walter or me to get in touch with Walter if you'd like to try Realty Juggler. I used it for a year. I really did like it. I ended up moving on to Constant Contact because that's just what I was using for work. But I really liked Realty Juggler. It allows you to do group text messaging or drip market campaigns for text messaging or email. It allows you to do a lot of tags. So if you want to tag their birthday, the client's birthday, or the client's house anniversary date, or all sorts of things, then you can set up things that will happen when those triggers happen, like an automatic email to go out to them on their birthday. These are ways in which you can very, very inexpensively stay in touch with your client database and keep track of them. I could have gone there and searched Ryan and probably had a pretty good idea of who in the world was on the Post-it note on my wall, okay? So using a CRM early in your career is what is going to help you be way more successful. Yes, Walter.
So here's, as Ashley likes to say, a pro tip for using your CRM. Put their home anniversary, closing anniversary in there, and reach out to them every year on their anniversary. Send them an anniversary card.
Yep.
And also another pro tip that I got from Joan Turner, and if you guys are not familiar with her, Joan does about 16 million in a bad year. She adopts every client that she comes in contact with. So if she is representing the seller and the buyer, you will get the buyer's information at some point in that progress of that transaction. She and you obviously know the address they live at now. She keeps all their information, adds them to her CRM too. She was my mentor when I first got into the business, whether she knew it or not. And I have adopted that as well. And I ended up selling houses that I was the listing agent on. And then the people used me to sell it because I'm the one that kept in touch with them.
That's right.
There you go.
You can assume listing agents are typically not staying in touch with their past clients. You know, buyer's agents are not either. If you are doing some of these very simple things that just take some time and energy to set up, you're going to be at the head of the pack. Because I know I'm a great real estate agent. Have I stayed in contact with every buyer I sold a house to? Absolutely not. I have not, because I did not have these systems in place early on. So you are literally reinventing it every time if you do not have systems in place. So that is systems. I cannot preach that enough. And even if you just pick 4 or 5 that work for you and stick with those religiously, you're still going to do more business than you would otherwise. Deepak, do you have something to add?
Yes, as Walter was saying, having the other party's information, when would it be okay to contact them just kind of like after 6 months we have sold the house, like, hey.
So after the transaction has closed, the agency relationship dies. So the agency relationship terminates at closing. Okay. Now, I have seen situations where I see buyer's agreements that have no termination date.
Oh, God.
In the state of Virginia, contracts have to have a beginning and an end or they're not valid. Okay. So even if you as the listing agent add that buyer to your database and after closing, let's say you send them a happy house anniversary card the following year and they weren't your client, that's okay, because that agency relationship died at the closing table. It terminated, ended at the closing table. And even if that buyer's agent had them sign an exclusive right to represent buyer agreement that had no ending date, you are still protected because that wasn't a valid buyer's agreement if it didn't have a termination date. Okay. I see that most often happening on referral agreements. I get these referral agreements that have no ending date or no termination date on them. Well, I immediately push back and say, this is not legally binding in the state of Virginia. There has to be a termination date. I don't care if you put it 5 years out on a referral agreement, but there has to be one. It cannot go on in perpetuity. Okay. Good question, Deepak. Let's see, what else do I have here? Okay. So on the previous call today, I was lecturing everybody that it's the year end and it is time to assess your personal sales for the year, get ready for your goal setting for January. But because this is a new agent call, what I'd like to challenge you guys to do, and I wish I had done at the end of the year, my first 5 years in business, is assess all of your business practices. At the end of the year here, sit down, write down 10 business practices that you did this year. Did they work for you? Did they not work for you? How would you evolve? How would you revise those business practices? How are you looking for buyers? How are you looking for sellers? If you can't answer that, you are not going to have business in 2021. So look at all of your business practices, and if you don't have any, get some. Call me. Call somebody else at the firm who you think is doing well and ask them, how are you getting buyers? How are you getting sellers? And then actually put that on your goal setting for 2021, okay? Because if you're being passive in looking for business, some business will come your way, but I guarantee you it won't be as much as you're wanting to come your way. You have to actively go out and get business. That doesn't mean just having your ears open anytime business might be available. It means actively going out and looking for buyers and sellers, looking for ways to be in touch with them, okay? Looking to be top of mind, who they think of every time they think of a real estate need. Do you have any idea how many times I have run a comparative market analysis for people who I know are not selling their house? Dozens and dozens and dozens of times. I did one this week for some friends of mine who they're selling the little pastor's house to the pastor because he's now retiring. I'm not listing that house, but I did a comparative market analysis for them because they remembered me. They thought of me when they thought of real estate business. So now when they have a real estate actual need later, presumably they'll think of me. So that is a service I provided to them for something I knew I wasn't going to get any business or get paid from. That's okay, because again, I'm farming. I'm farming to say, I am your real estate professional. Reach out to me no matter what, and I will help you. Okay. Also, let's be fair. That CMA took me. What'd you say?
I unmuted myself too quick because I was in the middle of talking to Deborah about where we're going for lunch. But I do have something to chime in there. But
please.
Well, I kind of lost my train of thought. So let me get back on track, and I'll interrupt you again.
Sounds good. I'll look forward to it. So part of our job is providing service that we're not going to get paid for. Now, there are some real hard-nosed agents who say, I always get paid. I always get paid no matter what I'm doing. Listen, no, that's not true. I've done CMAs. I've done listing appointments. I've met with buyers, and then they just change their mind. That's okay. I'm gracious about that. I am, dare say it, professional about that. Okay. So when you behave that way, they want to call you again later. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that?
I remember what I was going to say.
Yeah.
So it's been my experience that if I am being proactive in this business, like if I sit down and send out letters to, 50 people who their home expired 2 years ago and, mail those out, or I sit down and make a bunch of cold calls or send out personal notes to my family and friends and things like that, just reminding them that, I need them to buy a house so I can pay my mortgage. My phone rings, or I get an email where an agent is referring someone to me, or out of the blue, someone calls and says, hey, I'm ready to buy a home. So it's not always the activity I'm involved in that brings the business to me. But what I find is the more activities I'm involved in, the more business I get.
Absolutely.
As I was told a long time ago, real estate is a contact sport. You need to be the one initiating the contact.
That is an excellent way to put it. You're absolutely right. And we definitely have agents who do not actively engage in the contact sport, and they still make sales. They do. But typically what I see is they are not supporting their family on that income. So that is something they are a real estate professional, but that is not their primary source of income. If real estate is going to be your primary source of income, you are going to have to work the business, not just react to it when it comes to you. Okay. Anybody have any questions about anything or anything to add or, oh, and I mentioned it earlier, but draft emails at the end of this year, go ahead and set up 10 draft emails. One called your home search, another one called time for inspections, another one called don't forget to switch utilities. Have those draft emails already created and the templates there for you so that your business just moves so much smoother. You don't forget things and you're not having to recreate that language every single email. Okay. Anybody have anything left to add before we wrap up today? Or questions, anything? All right. Thanks for letting me lecture you for an hour. All right, everybody. Have a fantastic Thursday.
Well, I'll see you next year.
Thank you.
Zoom, I guess.
What did you say, Deepak?
So no more meetings until next year then?
I don't think we're going to have any more meetings until next year, possibly. But just watch your email and I'll email you. I don't think so. I think we'll probably be wrapped up. Jennifer and Donna and I have to do all of our year-end stuff for the office. So likely I'll see you in January.
All right. Well, if we don't see
Here
you.
for a second, I need to talk to you, Ashley.
Okay. Bye, everybody. I'll stay on. Hi.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm just trying to sell a piece of dirt before the end of the year here. So the woman who was the receptionist at Long & Foster reached out to me this morning because she passed her real estate license test.
That's not going to go over well. Oh,
She wants to talk to you.
okay. God, I should feel badly,
She reached. I'm not poaching people.
I know.
I have never done that. I have never tried to poach people from there.
I know.
Ever. They have everybody who you have ever talked to, and you know that.
I do.
Reached out to me, so
I know. It is the definition of that's not a me problem. That's a you problem. Yeah.
I mean, if your fucking receptionist is like, hey, I got my license, I'm ready to go away from here. Because I know y'all hitting people over the head for the money here.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that. I interviewed an agent yesterday, and she's brand new, right out of real estate school, and I signed her. She had interviewed at Keller Williams and Long & Foster. But she was saying that when and I don't ask people like, well, what'd they say over there? Like, I do not care what other companies are doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I'm successful, because I'm not up in everybody else's business. I'm just doing what we do, period. Right. But she shared with me that when she was in her interview at Long & Foster, that she came out of the interview not even knowing what they charge. She said he had it on a paper, and I assume she was talking about Jeff. She said he had it on a paper and he kept like pointing to it and referencing it, but then he moved it over away from me. She said, I wanted to lean and like take a peek, but he moved it so that I couldn't even take a peek at it. And I was like, well, how did that make you feel? And she was like, not very confident that they're proud of those numbers, of what they're taking.
Oh, well, he told me one time that though, the way that they have that thing structured over there, he said it makes it almost impossible to recruit any established agents.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and this lady took her classes at Keller Williams, and you'll find this bizarre as hell. She took her classes at Keller Williams, and I said, and I always ask because she came in here not knowing anyone from Wainwright, and I said, well, what, how did you hear about us? And she said, well, actually, I took my classes at Keller Williams, and Tina Fryer used you as an example when she was talking about commission models. I said, what do you mean? And she said, well, Tina Fryer said, and not all companies charge the same commissions. And she said, Ashley Wainwright in town charges much less than other firms in town. And that's just another example of a model in town. Thank you, Tina. I mean, what the lady said was, I'm sorry, she said Ashley Donahue.
Yeah.
So the lady never could figure out or some combination of my names where she couldn't quite figure out who it was. And then someone else shared with her who's finishing up in class. She's just finished class, who I am, and that she was going to come interview with me. And then this lady from yesterday said, that's who I was looking for. And then she came and interviewed with me and signed up yesterday. But what is Tina thinking?
She's not thinking. That's the whole thing.
I mean, I'm not sending her a thank you note because I don't think that would be polite.
I mean, why would you even discuss that there are other freaking commission models with people?
I don't know.
Especially if they're in-house training with you to get their license.
Yes. That is
you
easy
are just basically handing them the Keller Williams Kool-Aid every day. We're the best. We're the best. We're the best. We're the best.
Until you say, hey, except for Wainwright over there, I hear they're super affordable.
Where you could save $20,000 a year.
Right? I mean, it blew my mind. I had to not laugh. Like, what?
Fucking here. I mean, it does. It is so bizarre. You think to yourself, this can't be true.
I know, but I mean, that's how she knew about me, was through Tina Fryer. Thank you, Tina.
Crazy town.
Maybe Tina's coming over. I don't know.
Yeah, that's it. There you go.
Right?
It's the Fryer team of 47 agents.
Holy. Yep.
All right, you want her name and number?
I do.
Jessica Elkins. Common spelling of both.
Okay.
540-519-5233.
All right, I'll call her here in just a sec. Thank you, sir.
Yep, you might want to wait till maybe later this afternoon.
Okay.
She's probably sitting at the reception desk.
Oh, right. So should I call her this evening, or does she get off of the afternoon, or?
Let me text her and see what the best time is, and I'll shoot you a text.
That sounds wonderful. Thanks, sir. I'll put you down as her recruiter.
All right, sounds good.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.